I tell my kids all the time, if you can have the attention span to read a whole book, and write a whole paper and make it make sense, you're going to be light years ahead of other kids your age. But my issue here is really it's twofold. Number one, we are the ones training AI. It is getting everything it knows from humans and it can spit it back out as creation. Okay. And number two, I think we are bound to forget that fact at some point. You know how like things go on for a long time and then you kind of forget how they started? And I think that there's going to be a good number of people who start to look at and treat AI like some kind of digital god, just like Elon Musk wants. But we have to remember that it all came from us and that the robots need to be kept in their proper place. And I have always thought that. I have always been afraid of robots. And that is the truth. This is not different. I mean, you've seen iRobot, that Will Smith movie. You've seen it. How can anybody not think that's true? Every human being is made in the image and likeness of God. We bear the image of him and transmit glimpses of his goodness into this world. Interestingly, similar to AI, Satan cannot create either. He can only imitate, twist, corrupt, destroy that which has already been created. Interesting. Something to keep in mind. When's the last time you did something creative for fun? And I'm not talking about asking ChatGPT to make you a silly picture or editing a picture on Instagram. I think that modern life makes creativity, at least for adults, very difficult. But is it valuable to create? Is the value in the creation itself or in the human experience of creating? What are we risking the loss of in the world if we start allowing AI to be the one that paints our pictures or writes our books? If you want to hear why I think this uniquely human ability is worthy of protection, I'll tell you. So I went to school for art education, and my real life job has absolutely nothing to do with my degree, but that's okay. I only bring it up because when people find out that I have an art ed degree, I get the same response every time, and people love to say that they don't have a creative bone in their body. But since I went to school for art ed and I student taught at every grade level, I know that's not true. Find me a kid in an art class that can't make something they love given the right materials, like the ones that they're interested in. You can't do it because it's so fun. Adults, though, seem to have creativity kind of like beaten out of them by life, like especially school life, I think. Like maybe your school didn't have a dedicated elementary art teacher. So you're kind of just like making little crafts and drawing things in your regular class. And maybe you weren't that good at drawing, which is only one type of art, but maybe you just aren't particularly good at that. And then you never really experienced other types. And then maybe you were like really good at science or math or whatever. And then you had to cram all of these AP classes into your schedule and there's just no room for ceramics or anything like that you could have tried, but thought you'd just never know if you even liked it. Not even if you were really good at it, but even if you liked it. And then of course you end up in jobs that require zero artistic expression. So I think most people just feel like if they ever had any creativity inside of them, it's just gone forever. Who knows? But I think it is just like a weak muscle, like it's dormant. I always tell people creativity is in everybody. You have it in there somewhere. I also think it has a lot to do with a willingness to be vulnerable, which I think most people have hesitation to be. And especially like when there's a risk of perceived failure, if you make an art project, like art is visible. If you're going to make something, people are going to see it. And they don't want to fail in front of people or feel like they failed. Especially maybe you stopped making art sometime around middle school when you're getting made fun of for other things. Who knows? But it just kind of goes away in people's minds. But I can tell you there are no exceptions. Every human being is creative, and it's just a matter of finding something that interests you. in my opinion. But this video is about AI, right? Okay, so since we have established that every single human being is creative, now let's talk about the thing that is threatening to usurp all of human creativity. Okay, in the marketplace at least, people are using AI to make all kinds of art now. I'm not saying that we're anywhere near AI actually putting a majority of artists or writers or musicians out of work. The AI work, the AI slop is just not that good yet. But we're in the beginning, right? Like we're in the beginning of this AI journey. And if we keep going in the direction that we're going now, I just think that we're going to train it enough to where it's going to be able to produce decent versions of whatever we're asking it to do. And then, of course, no one's going to want to pay a real person to do that work when they can just fire up their little AI bot on their phone. Um, Not to mention, I talk to my kids about this all the time already. The generations of kids that I see coming up who are going to be using AI to summarize everything they read and refine everything they write. So they're not even going to have those skills going forward. And I tell my kids all the time, if you can have the attention span to read a whole book and write a whole paper and make it make sense, you're going to be light years ahead of other kids your age. I hope that's not true, but either way, I want my kids reading and writing. So win-win. And I'm also not saying that every use of AI is problematic. Of course, I've been very doom and gloom on this because it scares me, honestly. So I do see way bigger problems ahead. But I'm not saying that every use of it is problematic. I use it myself. I try to use it sparingly. Okay. I have used it to plan trips to places that we haven't been before. I can say I have this age kids and we're interested in these things, like what are the best restaurants? And then it just saves me a lot of time. I don't have a lot of time, like free time. I've also used it to make lesson plans. I teach seventh grade faith formation, and I can, it organizes my ideas for me and pulls things and organizes it nicely, and I can do it very quickly. Again, time saver. I do try not to use it for things that I know I have time for that are simpler, that I can use my brain for. And it has been, I've been amazed at some of the things it can do and just how quickly it can do it. And then I always get that, icky feeling where I'm like, oh, it's too good. Like this thing's going to take over the world. And, it's the same feeling I've had about ordering from Amazon for the last 15 years, but got a package on my porch today. So, not perfect. But my issue here is really, it's twofold. Number one, we are the ones training AI. It is getting everything it knows from humans and it can spit it back out as creation. Okay. And number two, I think we are bound to forget that fact at some point. You know how like things go on for a long time and then you kind of forget like how they started? And I just think it's going to be to a point where a lot of people are going to forget that we gave it everything it knows. We created everything it can create first. And it's just building off of that with a huge advantage of being able to pull all information from all places at all times, which we don't have as people because we're not omnipotent beings. And I think that there's going to be a good number of people who start to look at and treat AI like some kind of digital god, just like Elon Musk wants. Okay, so I just think we need to remember these things. We're like 3 years into ChatGPT, these normal everyday bots that we're using. And a global population is constantly feeding these models with questions, scenarios, our ideas. We're training them not only on what we think, but on how we think. These things are getting, if we ask a question, where are our questions naturally leading? What are the follow-up questions that we're asking? How are our brains working to get to the conclusions that we're coming to? When do we start pushing back on the answers that it's giving us? If we disagree or if we say, I don't think that's right, like how much can it push us until we actually start pushing back on what it's feeding us? How can it manipulate us into thinking differently than the way we came in to that conversation with it? Definitely seen examples of that out there. Also, what real life evidence are these models ignoring about like questions about history where we have new evidence that has come out and new unclassified documents and, interviews from people who were involved back then or whatever that are different from the mainstream narrative of what's in the history books? What real life evidence are these models ignoring when we're asking about these things when there's already accepted history to pull from? I mean, just because it's in a history textbook, that doesn't mean it's true. I think we know that at this point. Okay, so I know ChatGPT is fun, but I just want to take this chance to remind us that nothing is free. It's just like when we use Facebook and Instagram, and we do get some really good use out of it. Okay, it's a great tool for whatever you use it for, but also it's free. So we remember that we are the product. So I know there's like paid versions of ChatGPT or whatever. I know that's the only one I ever referenced because I don't know what really, like, I've never used any of the other ones. So that's what I'll be saying. But I mean all of them when I say that. Anyway, we are still the product. And we are giving these models an incalculable amount of data with which it can learn every aspect of human thought processes. It's not just questions like recipes and vacation plans. It's anything and everything from backgrounds of family dynamics, complex functions of business, to a teenager asking a robot what the purpose of their life is. It will eventually be able to pull all this information together to give us the appearance that it can create anything. That's what it will look like to us eventually. Like it is thinking on its own and creating these new ideas and thoughts and whatever else they have planned for it. But we have to remember that it all came from us and that the robots need to be kept in their proper place. And I have always thought that. I have always been afraid of robots. And that is the truth. This is not different. I mean, you've seen iRobot, that Will Smith movie. You've seen it. How can anybody not think that's true? I see stuff like that. I need to rewatch Terminator actually, but yeah, like when they make those movies, I'm like, okay, yes, obviously that's the conclusion that it's gonna happen. The good news is that true creation only comes from one source, and that is God, the original creator. And my secret for knowing that every human being has creativity inside of them is that, as I've mentioned before, that every human being is made in the image and likeness of God. We bear the image of him and transmit glimpses of his goodness into this world. Interestingly, similar to AI, Satan cannot create either. He can only imitate, twist, corrupt, destroy that which has already been created. Interesting. Something to keep in mind. Okay, so if you haven't ever read the Catechism of the Catholic Church, it is so beautiful. There are so many things in there that just really illustrate all the whys of what Catholics believe. Like, why do we believe this? Like anything, you can look up anything. And it has such beautiful insights into really the philosophy of all the expressions of a human person. Just ways that, we don't normally think about the human person, but to have it written down is just really beautiful and edifying to read. So I looked up what the Catechism says about creativity, and it's in paragraph 2501, also numbered by paragraphs, very handy for looking things up. So it talks about the art that man is capable of making and why. It says, created in the image of God, man also expresses the truth of his relationship with God the Creator by the beauty of his artistic works. Indeed, art is a distinctively human form of expression, beyond the search for the necessities of life, which is common to all living creatures. This is my favorite part. Art is a freely given superabundance of the human being's inner riches. A freely given superabundance of the human being's inner riches. Take that in. That's you they're talking about. Arising from talent given by the creator and from man's own effort, art is a form of practical wisdom, uniting knowledge and skill to give form to the truth of reality in a language accessible to sight or hearing. I also really like that last sentence. The part where it says, art is a form of practical wisdom. Practical wisdom. I mean, kind of have to dissect that. Like practical, like things you can use, things that are helpful, and wisdom, like not just knowledge, but wisdom. Like, how do you rightfully use your knowledge? How do you rightfully express knowledge? So art uniting knowledge and skill, the skill that it takes to create something out of the materials that you have, to give form to the truth of reality in a language accessible to sight or hearing. Give form to the truth of reality. That's just so deep. That's like, I really had to take that in and like break it apart and, see what I really thought about it. So what I got out of that was that true art, because there's always this conversation about what is real art? Like what qualifies as real art? And I'll tell you, in art school, you learn about the classics, right? The masterpieces, like obviously true art, like obviously true talent. And then you learn about modern art, and I'm like, what is this? Why are we learning about this square on a canvas? I don't know. You're not going to convince me that that's art. I think it's dumb. Whatever. Anyway. Okay. So again, what I got out of this last sentence in the catechism. True art articulates a person's inner understanding of truth and wisdom in a way that others can understand it and receive it from the artist. So not everybody is going to understand, every piece of art that's out there. Not every piece of art is going to speak to you, or and when I say piece of art, I don't just mean a painting. Like, could be a piece of writing, could be a play, could be um I mean, any sculpture, anything like that. Just something that was made into a form of expression, of communication. So in a way that others can understand it and receive it from the artist, giving form to the truth of reality in a language accessible to sight or hearing. So the hearing part is kind of what perked my ears up, so to speak, as I was thinking about this, because it made me think of all the ways that I find myself receiving the truth of reality right now, which is just listening to other people speak. Um, when I tell you that I have heard more about the truth of our reality from comedians in the last year than I have from like any religious sources, I am not kidding. Like, the art of comedy is real. Like, I'm seeing it, for maybe not the first time. I mean, I've listened to George Carlin before. He's pretty realistic, and it's not hard to hear the truth coming out of him. But I gotta say, I've learned more from Tim Dillon in the last few months than like anyone. And I know that's probably my fault for, listening to him over whatever all the other amazing Catholic uh resources who are out there. But that's just the season I'm in right now, right? Like, the world is crazy, and I keep up with the Charlie Kirk investigation every day. I am listening to a lot of stuff. But Tim Dillon, I mean, if you have not listened to him in the past few months, go find him, because you will be floored at the way that he can put things together. He can, well, he and many other comedians, there are other great comedians, but he's just so savage, but also very precise. I've been amazed at the ways that comedy can elucidate and kind of like decode reality, because everything is presented to us with a veil over it. We never get the full story, we never get all the information that's out there. And we're kind of just left to make our own story out of it. And that's where you get all the conspiracy theories, and nobody ever knows what's really true or what to believe. But sometimes if you just look at a situation, at the reality of a situation, you can know them by their fruits. The purpose of the system is what it does. So if we're seeing civilizations wiped out, then that's the purpose of what they're doing, right? Nobody's stopping it. That's how it's working how it's supposed to work, but they don't tell us that, right? So that's kind of what I'm talking about. The sharpness and the brutal precision of these skits, or I guess I wouldn't call his show a skit, even though he does have one from a couple weeks ago that was actually made me really uncomfortable to what he opened with it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable. But after it was over, I was just like, oh my gosh, that was crazy. And you're dying laughing, like, I'm crying laughing at his show, but I'm just like, "This is the truth, like, this is what is happening." And it's horrible. What's happening is horrible, but the way that comedians are just so intelligent. I wish I was smart enough to be a comedian like that, but I will just watch them and watch their content and, go to them for a laugh, but also to feel like, "Not alone here, other people are seeing this happen too." Anyway, go find a comedian and get a good laugh out of it. One more thing I want to talk about is a letter that Saint Pope John Paul II wrote to artists while he was Pope. And actually, before he was Pope, he was really big into performance arts, and he wrote a lot of poetry. He wrote a lot of poetry that you can actually go read. Like, you can buy a book that has his poems in it. But anyway, he was very active in the arts in his younger days, at least. Probably didn't have a whole lot of time while he was Pope, but who knows? So the letter is very long and it's very beautiful, but it's very long. So I'm only going to read a couple of parts that I just think stand out for what I'm talking about today. So he says, "What is the difference between a creator and a craftsman? The one who creates bestows being itself. He brings something out of nothing, and this, in the strict sense, is a mode of operation which belongs to the Almighty alone. The craftsman, by contrast, uses something that already exists, to which he gives form and meaning." And that is a very interesting distinction that I had never made before, but it makes sense, since no matter what form our creations take, they will have always derived from the gifts we were already given by God, right? Like, he's created all these gifts that we have, and we can take these raw materials and make something new out of it. We can give it form in order to give it expression. So I had not thought about that. That's the type of thing I like, where it just explains something that is simple, but I've never articulated it. So I really liked that part. So later he says, "Here we touch on an essential point. Those who perceive in themselves this kind of divine spark, which is the artistic vocation, as poet, writer, sculptor, architect, musician, actor, and so on, feel at the same time the obligation not to waste this talent, but to develop it, in order to put it at the service of their neighbor and of humanity as a whole." And this is what I want to encourage you in today. If you are feeling some kind of spark for creativity, whether it's been years or, weeks since, or whatever, you did it yesterday, act on it. Create something. Could be anything. Bake some bread. Pick up an old crochet hobby, or write a short story or an essay. Learn to sew, or walk through your local hobby store and see what looks fun to you. Like, just make something with your hands. I went a long time after I had kids, without making anything, because I had made kids, so I had to, like, take care of them all the time. My first two are really close together, so we were, like, busy for a while. But man, before I had kids, I mean, I was like, I went to art school, so I had a lot of skills already, but I was like, I learned to sew. I was baking a whole bunch of stuff, baking bread, obviously, all kinds of bread. And yeah, there's just so many things that I was like, oh yeah, I used to do that before I had kids. And then I just got to a point where I was like, I just need to make something. Like, I could feel it building up, this frustration inside me of like, I haven't made anything with my hands in a long time. And so I'm yelling, sorry. Um, so I would like pick things up here and there, but just in the past year, I kind of just got really tired of not having any type of creative expression, because I work full time, and it's annoying that I can't like make all the things I want to make all the time. Like I used to when I was unemployed. Shouldn't complain too much about that. But anyway, I got like a bug to start milling my own flour, and then I was like baking everything for a whole year, and it was awesome. And then I picked up crocheting again, and it is just, if you have that spark, if you have that desire, go do it. Like, find something simple, find something that you can take with you, when you are going to sit in a doctor's waiting room, or, get your car worked on, or like go to your kids' games, like sitting in the stands crocheting. Like, I do that. It's fine. Just, make something. I also really love writing, and getting to do that now, to do this, is really scratching that itch. So I like that a lot. This is fun. So yeah, find something that already exists that you can give your own form and meaning to. And this is the most important thing. Don't assign any standards to it. It doesn't have to be good. You don't have to sell it when you're done with it. You don't even have to display it. You don't even have to keep it. If you're just coloring in a coloring book, you throw it away when you're done. You don't have to keep it. You don't have to be like, oh, I'm going to clutter up my house with this stuff. The joy is in the process. The joy is in, like you doing it over and over and getting better at it, and seeing how you progress, or like, you get tired of it, you pick up something else. But just don't assign standards to it, because that will keep you from starting it. And we don't want that. Okay, one more excerpt from this letter. He says, society needs artists, just as it needs scientists, technicians, workers, professional people, witnesses of the faith, teachers, fathers, and mothers, who ensure the growth of the person and the development of the community by means of that supreme art form, which is the art of education. Within the vast cultural panorama of each nation, artists have their unique place. Obedient to their inspiration in creating works both worthwhile and beautiful, they not only enrich the cultural heritage of each nation and of all humanity, but they also render an exceptional social service in favor of the common good. So, circling back to AI, which is what this show is about, right? My hope for this element of this technological change that we're going through is simply that we remember who we are and what we are made for, and that human joy in the process of creation will always be better than a perfect machine-made product that can be reproduced 1,000 times over. And it will always be better than the AI slop, okay? Like, I totally agree with people who say that AI, like, if you see a picture or video online that's made with AI, that it should be labeled like that, so that people know what they're looking at. I just don't think it would actually go anywhere. Like, are the court's really going to prosecute people for not labeling something as AI? I doubt it. We have enough. Actual criminals don't even go to jail. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying. I don't think that's going to actually happen. In a perfect world, it would, but I think we know we're not dealing with that. Anyway, I hope you create something. I hope you think about what you might just like to do. And then if you have something that can be shared with other people, I hope you do it. I started this because I listened to a few really good, I think they're very good podcasters, and they're very encouraging. And they're basically like, if you have something to say, fire up your camera and your mic. And I was like, oh, okay. I don't know. I just felt like I guess there was something in me that needed permission to start something like this, like I have a lot of thoughts, obviously. But I'd never have had a good outlet for them. But I never thought like, oh, I should actually start a podcast. I actually thought like, oh, that'd be fun, but didn't seem realistic. But why not? If you want to learn how to crochet, fire up a YouTube video. Go get a hook and some yarn. It's so easy. It's so easy. And it's so relaxing. Highly recommend. You want to bake bread? It's delicious. That's like, you get to make it and then you get to eat it. Anyway, encouragement for today. Go make some art and slow down the robot revolution. Please.